First of all, congratulations to you guys on being now a part of the CW Athletic Hall of Fame history. Like, that's just so cool. Like, do any of you guys have any words that you'd like to speak about the team itself and how much this means to not just yourself, but the team?
I don't know. I mean, I look back, and while we were doing it, I wouldn't necessarily call it accomplishments. I mean, Dunbar had severely high expectations of all of us, and to be honest with you, I think he brought the most out of all of us. Mm-hmm. And then, the chemistry of us gelling together, that probably got us to where we were at.
Yeah, I was going to say is that I think anytime you're on a championship run type team, it's the chemistry on the field, but also it was the chemistry off the field. Mm-hmm. And that chemistry is still felt today, as we, gather for the Kitna Golf Tournament. We all kind of keep loosely in touch with a text site and a email page. And, but I think that chemistry on and off the field is what separates those championship teams. And we're all kind of still a brother at arms, so to speak, which is still pretty amazing after all these years. I mean, any one of these guys on that list called and had a flat tire, I think any one of us would be over there helping them fix that flat tire in a heartbeat, without exception. And I think that's probably the most special part that I remember about the team was our annex on the field and our annex off the field.
Yeah, I truly believe that, this is a special run, probably 4 or 5 years that we had, because, here we are, how many years later that we literally, there's a text goes on probably 2 or 3 times a year, something going on and people giving each other crap, and also getting together in the summer for the golf tournament. And usually at least once every other year, we'll meet all together for the football game or something else. We'll go on and we'll see each other. But we all keep in touch more than, I've talked to guys that graduated and played years after us and years before us, and they don't have the same, they just don't have the same group. Our group of 5 years, there's probably 25 guys that go to that tournament and hang out for that, day and a half every year. So, and some of us, this was my I was a 5th year senior this year. Ray should have been, but he went to Western for a hot minute. But Ray and I were recruited on the same day as seniors, and Mike and I, and there was I want to say that on that team there's 6 or 8 of us that were there for 5 years that played on that team.
Kind of expand on that. It seems anymore we get together and we look at each other and say we won the lottery. We had a great team, but that closeness, that tightness, that it's something special, and it continues to be something special. And as I'm thinking about it, I jotted down a few thoughts here. And since Mike Ellis is on here, some of the things that stick in my mind of being out there during 2-a-days, it's 100 degrees. We're weighing ourselves before practice and after practice, losing 8 pounds of water. And I remember Mike Ellis at the beginning of those 2-a-days saying 2 things. It's a great day to be a Wildcat, and there's no place I'd rather be than right here, right now. And I have found myself saying that a few times when times get tough. And it's amazing. We also being, we're all offensive guys here, but I just remember in practice, it's like we are playing against the best defense in the league here.
In the country, man.
And some of them that I played 1 year community college ball, I just remember it's like, wow, that guy is starting for Eastern Oregon or UPS. And I'm guessing our number 2 or number 3 guy on the depth chart would be ahead of him if he played at that school. It just, that year and that run of 4 or 5 years, God, we were just stacked. It just felt like we were stacked, talent-wise and attitude-wise. So what a great time.
I tell you what, though, I don't miss. All right, that's it. Ones versus ones, goal line.
Yeah.
No way. Leo coming down, scout taking cheap shots. Mike ripping someone's head off. No, I enjoyed that.
Ray, I remember that day where Dunbar was pissed off. We were having a bad practice. And as a tight end, here we are, ones versus one, goal line. And the smack talking was starting and all that stuff. And I remember as a tight end, and Bob Gardner, you'll probably jump in and say where you used to be able to kind of look through your face mask and look at the shoes of the guy that you had to reach block or drive block or whatever. And it's like, okay, that's Yonts. I might get him on a little fake, or there's Dykeman. I got him. And I look down and I see what looks like freaking size 18 shoes. And for some reason, they had Estes lined up as an outside linebacker. And I was supposed to drive block him. And everybody was pissed off. And Patterson and him were going at it. It's just like, holy smokes. I
remember they stood him up out there when we were getting ready for PLU to stop the counter.
Oh, yeah, I chopped him. I wasn't taking him head on. No way.
Oh boy, I made the mistake.
and we got Patterson behind us, just chattering at him, just pissing him off even more, right?
Yeah, throw a little gas on that fire.
I just remember Thursday practices. And
the huddle was big.
Just leave it at that.
And we had an exceptional coaching staff in those days also. I mean, Charles Chandler, rest in peace, Mike Dunbar, rest in peace, and Ricardo and Atkins. And I think all those guys, even Coach Walker, all those guys brought out the best of us, right? And they were truly players coaches. We started with Coach Perry and moved to Dunbar and got to see kind of the new age coaching. And they were really coaches. They were really players coaches. I mean, they cared about us. I was fortunate enough to call Dunbar a number of years ago and just to say thank you for, being part of what I would call a building block of my life. And it was when he was diagnosed with this cancer. And I left a message and just said, hey, I'm Mike from Central, 89 grad, and he's seen thousands and thousands of kids, right? So I didn't expect him to remember me in any way. And shit, if he didn't call me back the next day and, oh, hell yeah, I remember you. And, so it was really awesome to be able to say thanks to him and what he did. And the impact that the coaches had on all of our lives, right? And still do. Still do to this day.
Yeah, I remember, Dunny was at I can remember at least 5 years that he was at the tournament. And, at the beginning of each tournament, I would sit and chat with him because his son was in engineering, and I think working out at Hanford at the time or something. I was wanting to go out that way. So, he was, like one of the regular guys with us.
Right. Yeah.
It was really that simple. But one of my most favorite memories of that man. You guys remember when we got our ass handed to us by PLU?
Yep.
In the locker room, he says that will never happen again.
Yeah. 1987.
Onside kick in the second. We got torched in every aspect. And I think for him too, he ratcheted it up. He demanded more of his coaches. Of course, he demanded more of us. We worked harder.
So would you guys say that there was like an annual, like really big game, or like any games that have like significant memories with them or significance within the football program itself that you guys got to experience?
PLU and Western.
And I would say to some respects, Simon Fraser, because they were always the last game of the year and we never took the pedal off of them.
You guys don't put Eastern Oregon up into that category?
No.
I'm surprised.
Oh, yeah. No, I think PLU was, we were there, was the biggest rival.
Yeah.
We never lost to Western.
Yeah, we didn't want to either.
And PLU is kind of Catholics versus the convicts.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was good.
Linfield was very good too, but PLU was definitely the team that we'd get up for.
Yeah. Well, they were always the toughest in our league. I think that, 1 and 2, 2 and 1, 1 and 2, 2 and 1 type stuff.
Yeah.
And
they were just a gritty team. Right?
Yeah.
They were well coached.
Well coached.
They didn't get a lot of penalties where we might have.
Referring to my roommate?
Yeah, well, there you go.
And so I guess kind of like looking like throughout your tenure there, like you guys were pretty successful. Like, so what were some of the keys to being so successful there, and like any stories that you have that associate with like the coaching staff or any of the other players during practice, stuff like that?
Well, I think for me, I think we had some really phenomenal athletes, right? I mean, for me as an offensive lineman, I got the block for Ed Watson, who I saw is in the all central team. I got to play with Jimmy Dillingham. I think he's a top 5 leading rusher, and then obviously Pat Patterson, right? Which there's some phenomenal athletes, and us lineman guys, we want to drive block and knock people down, and we don't want to stand up and patty cake people. And but to have those athletes, I think that they really helped make it easy. And Patterson brought such a level of intensity and expectation. I mean, he was a guy that would start the fight and then back out and let us defend him, right? and not because he was an ass. He was just so intense on winning, right? There was no option. And then to have that defense that we had on the other side, I mean, those, Scow and Fangler and all those guys, I mean, they were incredible athletes that Dunbar would find. Nick, yeah. Snyder, I mean, Snyder was probably one of the best football players I've ever seen, right? For a guy that ran like a 5'2" 40 at middle linebacker, he was the fastest guy on the field on set hut.
Scariest guy in the field.
And we had, our offensive line we were really tight. I mean, we did a lot together in those days. Jeff Hash and Todd, and I still fish with Phil Johnson, who was our left guard. The only guy I don't see is Lumpy, Eric. But Todd and I are still best friends. So I think that just the closeness we had on and off the field was just a remarkable part of the experience.
Well,
to this day.
To add to that, while we kind of had our individual assignments, I remember being in an offensive, probably Sunday night film study or whatever, where we're just all together as an offense. And I forget who we were playing, but the level of confidence that they instilled in us and expectations of us, I just remember Dunbar one time saying, you know what? They put 8 people in the box. Nobody can cover our wide receivers one-on-one. We will pass it over them. They put 7 in the box and try and cover the wide receivers. We will run all day long. And it just, that confidence, that level of expectation that, it stuck with us then, but boy, I sure find it, I can't play in a city league basketball game and not expect to win. I just, that expectation of and positivity and grit and all that stuff. It's something that is stuck then, and I'd say just kind of with the teammates I was surrounded with, the coaches we had, that I'm a better friend, I'm a better father, I'm a better husband, I'm a better businessman because of football at Central. So that
amen to that.
I'm going to add on to what Mike said. You think back then, like when we were sophomores, the team changed quite a bit. Personnel from our junior and senior year. So the program, there again, Dunbar's at the point of this thing in an era where recruiting, when you're not giving out a ton of money, for these guys, and for him to pull those guys in, and I'll even go one step further, giving some guys the second chance, right? Which we had some studs, like Mike said, some phenomenal athletes, especially on the defensive side. They wouldn't have gotten a second chance if it wasn't for Mike and what he did, and they turned around, they appreciated it, and they showed it out there on the field.
Yeah, really the defense was the guys they brought in and recruited. Gallagher was there the whole time, but everybody else was brought in. When the offense, we were all born and bred, go to Central, and it's funny how we get into those meetings and I think about, not worrying about the game. I was more worried about beating somebody on our defense on a Wednesday than I was on a Saturday, because if you miss up on a Wednesday, you might go with it. Your head might not be attached, but on a game day, I was never worried about hitting anybody at a game day. God, if you actually don't let Ross hit you, sometimes I would get in trouble. So, as a second teamer, I remember one time Ross take a swing at me and put his shoulder out because I ducked it, and Dunbar screaming at me, "What are you doing?" And I thought he was yelling at Ross, but he was yelling at me, "Let him hit you." And but we built a team. It was from top to bottom, that team was stacked, and we most of the time, we were together during the week, on the weekends, on the off season, up till and including, today. A lot of us still get, like I said earlier, we all still get together, but it was the arrogance. I call it the arrogance of being just better than the other team. We felt we were better, and we worked hard enough to get better. And you have to do some special stuff to beat us. I mean, we lost that last playoff game. I'm not sure how we lost that last playoff game, but that team. Till this day, I thought we should have been national champions that year.
But and guys, you think about the last 2 years, right? Our junior, senior year, and most teams that you hear about, you see, the quarterback is the main guy, right? It's all centered around that, and it's like that. Our junior, senior, it wasn't. In fact, we had different quarterbacks each year. And that wasn't, the quarterbacks used to the captain. That wasn't the case. Was the leader. We had plenty of leaders, out there. We didn't need the quarterback to be that position.
And I think that
more unusual.
One of the things that stands out in reflection too is that they never pointed blame to us athletes. Dunbar would come down really hard on us coaches if we weren't performing, but he never. I mean, they would show mistakes and stuff in film, and don't get me wrong, we could stay on a Mike Ellis missing a block for 5 or 6, 15 minutes, but when it came down to it, the coaching staff took a lot of the heat in not coaching or teaching, more so than us just flat out making mistakes. And that's one of the things I think I take away from it mostly, is know that mistakes are going to occur, but coach them up and keep coaching them up and keep coaching them up. And I think that was one of the profound differences that I saw in these championship staffs, was that type of attitude, that they owned it, not the players owned it, right? When a mistake occurred, and then when we had success, they were pushing us out in front, right? Talk, on the radio, talk to these guys, talk to these guys, talk to these guys.
Yeah, that's super important, I think. I don't think enough coaches do it nowadays, honestly.
I think that the values that they I don't know if it's accidentally taught, but the values that we accidentally maybe learned during this experience. And I got to tell you that I look around and I see all my buddies, and we're all very successful citizens. We're successful in our businesses. A lot of us, to be honest with you, are champions in our businesses, right? I mean, you're looking at four pretty good champions of businesses. Safety director, Ray, you got to be at that VP operational level, and Rick just runs all of Kitsap County. So I think that says a lot of the character of the players' makeup, and then the coaches fostering a lot of that.
Absolutely, that makes perfect sense to me, at least.
The other thing, we're so lucky to experience the positivity, but looking across the line as we're clobbering these teams, they start hanging their head, they start chipping at each other. It's like, okay, we're about to run away with this game.
Yeah.
And that's another thing that kind of carries on where, you've dealt with organizations and just really the inner workings of a team. And boy, you see people start chirping at each other and hanging their heads and all that. It's like, I would not want to work with them. I would not want to do that. Or if, Ray, if we're competing with someone on a construction job or something like that, and they start being negative or whatever, it's like, nah, we got that. We're going to win that job. So
yeah,
that's just a little bit of shark smelling blood and taking advantage of it.
Sometimes that's how the way the world works. You sometimes have to be the shark.
Yeah.
Very excited to have you guys as well. Dennis is always super excited for this. It's like kind of one of his favorite events of the year, and I'm sure he's very excited to get to meet some of the guys that kind of helped build the football team into what it is today.